The chicken was getting cold on my plate when I first heard it. Alex's sister, Ingrid, leaned across the table and said something low and fast in German. Something about Alex visiting the twins again this weekend. His mother smiled and nodded. His brother looked down at his food. And Alex, my husband of 7 years, reached for his wine glass without blinking. I kept my face completely still. Because what none of them knew was that I had studied German for 4 years in college. I understood every single word. The twins, 2 small words, casual, tossed across the dinner table like it was nothing. But my whole body went cold. I looked at Ingrid. She was already moving on, laughing at something else, completely comfortable. That was the worst part. She wasn't careful. She wasn't lowering her voice out of guilt. She said it the way you talk about someone's weekend hobby. Alex was their secret, but he had never been mine. I picked up my fork and took a slow bite, chewing carefully, keeping my breathing even. If they wanted to talk, I was going to let them talk. His mother, a sharp woman named Helene, asked Ingrid when Alex was planning to take the boys to the lake house. Ingrid said probably in June, once school was finished. The boys, not the twins this time. The boys. I set down my fork very quietly and reached for my water glass. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of business trips to Portland. 7 years of unexplained withdrawals from our joint account. 7 years of a husband who never quite let me in, and I had spent all that time believing it was just his personality. It was not his personality. The dinner continued for another 40 minutes. I laughed at the right moments. I passed the bread basket. I answered Helene's questions about my job at the university. Inside, I was pulling every thread I could reach. The Portland trip started about 6 years ago, roughly once every 6 weeks, sometimes more. Alex always came home tired but relaxed, the way a person looks after they have spent time somewhere they truly belong. I used to think he just needed space. Now I understood he had a whole separate life waiting for him 400 miles away. On the drive home, Alex was in a good mood. He hummed along to the radio. He rested his hand on my knee at red lights. He had no idea anything had changed. I watched his profile in the dark, the strong jaw, the relaxed shoulders, and felt something go quiet inside me. Not rage, not tears, just a cold, clear focus. "Did you have fun tonight?" he asked. "It was lovely," I said. And I meant it, because that dinner had just handed me everything I needed to finally understand the life I had actually been living. That night, after Alex fell asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and pulled up 6 years of bank statements. I had looked at them before, of course, but I had never looked for anything specific. This time, I was. The pattern was immediate and obvious once I knew what I was searching for. Every 6 to 8 weeks, a withdrawal of between $400 and $900. Always cash. Always 2 or 3 days before a Portland trip. In 6 years, the total came to just over $41,000. I wrote the number down on a piece of paper and stared at it for a long time. I started with what I could confirm without leaving the house. Alex's company did have a Portland office. He traveled there for real meetings. That part was never a lie. But the trips were always 2 or 3 days longer than necessary. I searched his name along with Portland and found nothing useful. Then I searched the name I had heard at dinner, the woman his family referred to only as Nora. They had mentioned her once briefly when Helene asked if she was still living in the same neighborhood. Ingrid had said yes. I typed Nora, Portland, twins, and I waited. I did not find Nora that night, but I found something else. A community fundraiser page from 3 years ago, a school carnival in a Portland suburb, with a photo of volunteers. And standing in the back row, smiling in a red jacket, was my husband. The caption listed him as Alex Brenner, parent volunteer. Parent volunteer. I enlarged the photo until his face filled my screen. It was a version of Alex I had never seen. Easy, open, completely at home. He looked the way he used to look in our first year together, before the distance settled in. I saved the photo and closed the laptop. The next morning I called my oldest friend Celeste, who was a family law attorney. I did not tell her everything. Not yet. I just asked carefully what a person should do if they suspected their spouse had a child, or children they had never disclosed. Celeste went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You document everything before you say a single word to him." Bank records, travel records, photos, anything with dates. Once you confront him, information starts disappearing. She paused. Are you okay, Ren? Not yet, I told her, but I will be. I gave myself 2 weeks. 2 weeks to build a complete picture before I did anything at all. I printed every bank statement going back 7 years. I photographed every receipt I could find in his desk drawer. Gas stations, restaurants, a hardware store, all with Portland zip codes. I requested copies of our joint tax returns, and I began paying attention to his phone in a way I never had before. Not reading it, just noticing how often he checked it when he stepped outside to answer it. The way he always placed it face down on the counter whenever I walked into the room. On a Tuesday afternoon, while Alex was at work, I found an envelope tucked inside a running shoe at the back of his closet. Inside was a birthday card, drawn in crayon, crooked letters, the handwriting of a young child. Happy birthday, Daddy. Love, Finn and Cole. I stood there holding it for a long time. Finn and Cole. The twins had names now. They were real. Small boys who loved their father. Boys who had no idea their father had another whole life a 4-hour drive away. I put the card back exactly as I found it, laced the shoe, and went to sit on the edge of the bed. That night, I finally found Nora. Nora Halse. 34 years old. An elementary school librarian in Beaverton, Oregon, a suburb of Portland. Her profile was mostly private, but her profile photo was public. She was pretty in a quiet way. Dark hair, warm eyes, the kind of face that looked like it smiled easily. I stared at her photo for a long time without feeling what I expected to feel. I did not hate her, because the longer I looked, the more I saw someone who had probably been lied to as well. The question was, when did Alex's relationship with Nora actually begin? Celeste helped me hire a private investigator named Dean Ferris. He was calm and thorough, and he did not ask unnecessary questions. He confirmed within 10 days what I had already suspected. Alex and Nora had been together for at least 8 years, 1 year before he proposed to me. Finn and Cole were 6 years old, born during our 3rd year of marriage. Alex had been dividing himself in half for our entire relationship. He had a family in Portland and a wife in Denver, and he had apparently decided that both could simply continue forever without ever colliding. He was wrong. I asked Dean one more question. Did Nora know about me? He took a day to confirm it. The answer was no. Nora believed Alex traveled constantly for work. She believed he was committed to her and the boys. She believed she was his partner. She was, in every way that mattered to her, exactly where I had been, trusting a man who had made himself impossible to fully reach. I thought about calling her, but I decided that conversation could only happen after Alex had been confronted. She deserved the truth from someone who had all of it, and I now had all of it. I booked a second appointment with Celeste and brought everything. The bank statements, the printed photos, Dean's report, the birthday card, photographed but replaced. Celeste spread it across her conference table and studied it without speaking. Finally, she looked up. Ren, this is a very strong case. Fraud, financial concealment, intentional misrepresentation in the marriage. She tapped the bank summary. This money went to support another household. That is marital asset misuse. You are entitled to significant compensation. I told her I understood. What do you want the outcome to look like? She asked. I want him to lose everything he tried to hide, I said. We filed the divorce petition on a Friday morning. I had already transferred my personal savings to a separate account, as Celeste had advised. I had already made copies of every document and stored them off-site. I had already arranged to stay with my sister Margot for as long as I needed. By the time Alex came home that evening, the paperwork had been received by his office. He walked through the door looking tired. He set his bag down, loosened his tie, and looked at me standing in the kitchen. Long day, he said. I imagine it was, I replied. He saw the folder on the kitchen table. He crossed the room slowly, like a man who already knew. He opened it, read the first page, closed it. Then he looked at me. Ren, I know about Nora, I said quietly. I know about Finn and Cole. I know about the 8 years, the $41,000, and the lake house trips. He went very still. I know because your family told me, I continued. At dinner, 3 weeks ago in German. The color left his face completely. They assumed I didn't understand, I said. That was a mistake. He tried several things in the hour that followed. First, he apologized, genuinely, I think. His voice broke, and he sat down heavily at the table and put his head in his hands. Then he tried to explain. He said it had happened slowly, that he never meant for it to go this far, that he had been too afraid to end either relationship. Then he asked if we could find a way through it. I listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, I told him calmly that Celeste would be handling all further communication. Then, I picked up my bag and walked out the front door. I called Nora the following Monday. It was the hardest phone call I have ever made. Not because I was angry at her, but because I knew the call would break her world open the same way mine had been broken. She was quiet for a long time after I finished. Then she asked how long I had known. I told her about the dinner, about the German, about Dean's report. She exhaled slowly. He told me he was never going to get married, she said. Her voice was steady, but I could hear what it was costing her to keep it that way. I'm sorry, I told her. And I meant it completely. The divorce proceedings took 7 months. Alex hired an attorney who argued the financial transfers were reasonable given the circumstances. Celeste dismantled that argument point by point. The court found that Alex had intentionally concealed marital assets, made undisclosed financial commitments to another household, and had misrepresented himself at the time of marriage. He was ordered to repay my share of the diverted funds with interest. He lost the Denver house. He lost the retirement accounts he had built using our joint income. He kept his debts and a very reduced version of the life he had spent years carefully constructing. Ingrid called me once during the proceedings. She said she was sorry, that she had always felt uncomfortable with the situation, that she had told Alex for years it would eventually collapse. I thanked her for saying so, but I also told her that uncomfortable was not the same as honest. She could have said one sentence to me at any point in 7 years. Instead, she sat across from me at Christmas dinners and birthday lunches and said nothing while I built a life on top of a lie. Her discomfort had protected him. I did not stay angry at her, but I was not interested in remaining close to her either. Helene never called. I did not expect her to. What I had not expected was the letter, 3 pages, handwritten, that arrived 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized. She wrote that she had made a terrible choice in protecting Alex's secret, that watching the proceedings had shown her what the cost of that silence truly was. She wrote that she hoped, in time, I might forgive her. I read it twice, folded it carefully, and put it in a drawer. I did not respond, not because I was unwilling to forgive her eventually, but because forgiveness takes time. And I was not going to rush anything ever again. Nora and I spoke twice more after that first call. We were not friends. The situation was too tangled for that, but we were honest with each other in a way that helped us both move forward. She told me that Finn and Cole were adjusting slowly, that Alex was still in their lives, which was right for them, even if it was complicated for her. I told her I bore no anger toward her or her boys. She told me she had started talking to a therapist. I told her I had too. We did not talk again after that, but when we said goodbye the second time, it felt clean. 2 women who had both been lied to, choosing not to take it out on each other. A year after that dinner, I stood in my new apartment, small, quiet, entirely mine, and made coffee in the early morning light. The divorce was finished. The financial settlement had given me enough to start over with a solid foundation. I had returned to the university, taken on a new research project, and begun rebuilding my days from the ground up. It was not the life I had planned, but it was the first life I had ever lived that was completely honest. No missing weekends, no unexplained withdrawals, no quiet feeling in the back of my mind that something important was being hidden just out of reach. Just my apartment, my coffee, my life. People sometimes ask me if I regret not confronting Alex sooner, if I wish I had pushed harder years ago. I tell them the truth. I trusted the life in front of me because it looked whole. But here's what I know now. Trust is not the same as blindness, and patience, the kind I used at that dinner table, sitting perfectly still while the truth spilled out across the room, can be the most powerful thing a person owns. Alex thought his secret was protected by language. He forgot that understanding does not always announce itself. Sometimes it just listens, and then when the time is exactly right, it speaks.